So don't worry about it if you want to speak up and you don't want to be on a video. All right, this webinar is organized by the TIU eTrack Alumni Association. You probably know them. You can always reach out to us via email or on social media, TIU eTrack Alumni. Also, our hashtag is TIU for life. And I'm the chairperson of the TIU eTrack Alumni Association. And I'm doing this webinar because I kind of know where you are. I've done myself a master immediately after TIU, and then after that I started to work. But to be honest, at the end in my last year, I thought actually I would go working afterwards. I decided to actually go work, but after having talked to a professor, he kind of persuaded me to do a master's degree nonetheless. And this is not going to be any kind of webinar where I persuade you to do a master's degree, because I think I have now a broader perspective on this thing. I just want to share with you that I've been in the same situation as you've been, and that there are many other students as well, as you can see, who had asked the same question themselves. And you probably ask these kind of questions that you might have. What is my passion? What do I want to do in the future? Do I have enough experience? Do I like studying academia, or do I prefer practical things like a job? What should I do first? Or what kind of job do I want to do? What kind of masters? Or even, am I good enough? And I guess what I would like to tell you is that these questions have been part of my own questions as well. And you might as well feel all these kind of feelings you see right now there on the slide. You're very nervous, stressed, helpless, or worried what you will do in the future. Or you might even feel alone. But I would like to tell you that you're not alone in this. There are many other students as well who feel the same way as you do, and it's quite natural. And I tell you why. First of all, you stand in front of a position, in front of a decision where you don't want to perhaps open the wrong door. You feel like you don't know exactly what is going to happen in the future, but you don't want to do a mistake. That might be one of the feelings you have. Some students feel like, oh, if I go this way, do I do a mistake? Everyone has it when they start something new, right? Very uncertain. Probably the same thing as when you went to TIU, you weren't exactly sure if you did the right thing. You always want to choose the correct door. You want to be sure that this is it, that you haven't done haven't taken a wrong path, or that you have really just decided to go in the wrong direction with this. And it's quite a natural feeling. Everyone has it, particularly in this society where there's a lot of pressure from the outside, and it's quite natural. And we feel that as well because lots of things are uncertain. The future is uncertain. You can't really decide what is going to happen in the future. Now, you're all TIU students, and let's say you're a third or fourth year student. What happens after TIU is uncertain. But also freshman students and second year students cannot be sure that they're actually going to be in college next year. You don't know what happens in the future. There could be all kinds of things. Let it be family issues, let it be financial issues, let it be the climate, or let it be a virus, which will basically destroy all these things you've planned, all these apparently certain things in life, and will take them away for you. So the only thing that is certain up till now is your current present, and everything what happens in an hour, in a day, in a month, in a year are very uncertain things. And it's quite a natural thing, or something to handle while you basically continue with your normal life. It's just a natural thing to be embraced with uncertainty in life. And allow me to do this small joke there. It's a very lame joke, I'm sorry. But I looked at this image yesterday and I thought, why would they give this figure a butt? It's just unnecessary, but I just wanted to make that joke. So to give a little bit more bird perspective on going back to doing a master's or doing a job, I just want to first of all take a bird view and list on why do a master's, why do a job. So the first thing, why do a master's? The first part is, of course, developing your interest in the field. If you feel like in BE, IR, or DBI, you haven't learned enough, or you really want to learn more, then a master's, of course, makes sense because you dive more deeply into the subject and you have more advanced courses. You also might improve your employment prospects. Some jobs these days, and particularly if you are going for big companies, sometimes they require you to do a master's degree. Now, that's not, of course, the case for every job or any kind of career prospect, but usually people go to a master's degree to improve their employment prospects, that they get a job they want. Which basically leads to the meeting the requirements of your dream job, because if you have a dream job, and that's just if, and you know that there's a master's degree required, then of course it makes sense to do a master's degree. You might think that you want to continue to do a PhD. If you have that in mind and you really like academia and research, a master's degree will definitely bring you to a PhD. Now, there is this thing that you don't need to have a master's degree actually to do a PhD. There are ways to go from a bachelor's to a PhD directly, but usually the case is that you go to a master's degree because universities want to see that you have done all the things with methodology, literature review, and all these kind of things, that you know them. And a bachelor's degree usually doesn't really and indicate that. Entering into a particular profession, of course, that might be the case as well. If you're a lawyer, it depends on the country there as well. Sometimes you would need a master's degree or something similar. Maybe sometimes it's like a final examination, which is kind of counted like a master's degree. Or if you want to go really to an international organization, they usually require you to have a master's degree. So entering a particular profession definitely is there. And there's meeting the requirements of your dream job. Again, that was a mistake. Why do a job? So we have done now why do a master's. Now, why do a job? Well, of course, the most obvious reason for a job is the financial well-being. As a master's student, you don't earn money except maybe in a part-time job, or you have a scholarship, that could be it. But of course, a job will always make you financially stable, financially independent. As it's a big advantage to do a job. Being independent, as I said, you currently probably maybe not rely on your family's money or on some scholarship, but it isn't money you've actually earned by yourself. So being independent is definitely one of the big advantages of a job, because you will definitely earn your own money. Finding your true passion is also something I believe what a job does. And the master's, if you progress from a bachelor's degree to a master's degree, you might say, really, I would like to study business economics. I would like to do an MBA. But if you haven't had any kind of experience in that field, and you progress through the master's degree, and at the end you start working in that field, and you say, oh, actually, I don't like this. This is not my true passion. Then it definitely makes sense to do a job potentially first, because a job allows you to see what you really like in this field and what you don't. Of course, that always depends on the person. I can't be very individualistic here. I can only be taking the general view of things. I hope that you understand that. Gaining practical experience is also a very obvious one. If you've done some internships, if you've done some volunteering, that's all perfect. That's great, exactly where you should be. A job is still something else, because as an intern, you will never have the same responsibilities. You will never be as busy, I promise you that. And I can tell you that from my own experiences as an intern. But practical experience is something you will definitely earn for your resume, but also just in general, because you will learn how to get things done. And this might not apply for you exactly, but I'll put it on in there anyways. Change in industries. So for example, if you study IR, if you study BE right now, or DBI, and you've gone through your bachelor's degree, but you realize I really didn't like what I studied, or I don't really like exactly what I want. I actually want to do, I don't know, I want to go into finances, or I want to go into development studies, or I want to, I don't know, study cultures, whatever. A job might help you to change industries, particularly there where it's difficult to change industries. Like if you want to change from politics to law, there it's a bit tricky, because you would need to have usually the bachelor's of laws, but sometimes having some work experience in that field will give you the chance to actually switch and do an LLM, or progress into a law kind of job, let's say. So I put that on there. So now we have kind of just quickly talked about why do a job, why do a master's, and now I kind of would like to bring it to the factors which might play a role. And I think I've mentioned already one, but money is definitely a big factor of your decision. What should I do first? Should I do a master's or should I do a job? If you know that you have really financial difficulties, of course a job might make sense, might be attractive to you. Nonetheless, because a master's degree always costs money, it doesn't bring you money technically. It should bring you money when you start working, but during this 1 year or 2 years you're in a master's degree, you don't earn money. And if you know that it's quite short, it might be an issue. Now there are scholarships, and I think particularly there are many scholarships for Southeast Asian countries, from what I've seen, and developing countries, underdeveloped countries. For those, there are lots of scholarships. It doesn't matter where you go, so usually there is some support there. Also for Europeans, there are lots of scholarships out there, Americans, and they tend to be competitive, but also they are still nonetheless there, which you can go to and see if you can get some money, but you don't really earn money. So that's one big factor of deciding for you, if you know that you're in a financial situation which is really difficult, to perhaps potentially say, okay, I'm going to go with a master first, with a job first, and then do a master's later. Another factor you probably would need to consider is experience. If you went through your bachelor's degree and you don't have any experience at all, like you don't have a part-time job, you don't have a volunteer experience, you don't have an internship experience, then a job experience might help. Because in a bachelor's degree, while usually these days people have some experiences, a job after a bachelor's degree usually doesn't tell you must have work experience. After you've done a master's degree, usually they say, I think there needs to be some work experience, and that can be in the form of an internship, volunteering, etc. But a job will then give you kind of this will fill the hole you have if you don't have any other experiences. So a job might be helpful there. Another factor is, of course, your goal or your vision. And I think this might be one of the hardest things for you guys, because you are here to decide whether to do a master's degree or whether to do a job first, right? And of course, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have vision, then this factor might be very difficult for you to say. But what I would like to give you is potentially you have the idea, okay, I don't know exactly what I want to study. I don't know exactly what I would like to do as a profession, but I do know that I want to stay in Japan, or I want to go back to my home country, or you want to learn a specific language. So it would make sense to kind of look at those goals or those visions you have, and perhaps align your master's degree vision or your job vision towards those goals instead, because they will lead you to something. If you don't know something right now, try to experience more, try to learn more through the other ways in order to find what kind of masters you want to do and what kind of job you want to do. Okay, so this is not about the vision of what master, what job. This is more about the vision or goals you have as on the side. And I give you an example. If you want to stay in Japan, as a foreigner, you usually know, or probably all of you know, that in Japan it's very uncommon to do a master's degree for Japanese, and usually it really depends on from which university you come from. Like there are people from University of Tokyo who studied finances, but in the end they are lawyers or whatever. That's a bit crass, I think, but it's just an example. So it depends really from which university you come from, but that is just for the Japanese side, I would say. So you might worry like TRU is not a big name right now in Japan, but you are a foreigner. You have a big other advantage, which is language. Because in Japan, and I've talked to many recruiters in Japan, and I have also many friends who say the same thing, it doesn't really matter what you studied before, from what university you come from. If you're a foreigner and you speak, let's say, fluently English and fluently Japanese, well, then you will have an easy way to find, well, I don't want to say easy way, but you have it definitely easier to find a really good job, a well-paying job in Japan. So if this is your goal, you might want to brush up your Japanese. And I'm telling you, usually people say JLPT N2 is enough. From what I heard, N1 will put you apart from all these people. So if you have just an N2, it's not competitive. You have to have some, there's some competition. If you have an N1, it will be much easier for you to find a job in Japan. So if you really is your goal, you want to stay in Japan, and you want to work in a Japanese company, or foreign companies exist there too, but there it's a bit more difficult to find a company which accepts someone with a low Japanese level, but it exists. But Japanese is then really important. So that's some factor to think about. Where do you want to go? What is the vision you have on the side if you don't know exactly what master's or what job to do? Another big factor is, of course, your degree. And I hope you see what I did there. In the middle is business economics, on the right is DBI, and in the left is IR. A big factor is your major as well. And usually, if you take Japan now out of this whole equation again, business economics is a very much, how should I say, focused and a degree. You can just do a bachelor's degree. You don't need to particularly do a master's degree. You can. I'm not saying that you can't or that you shouldn't. I'm saying that business economics is very specific. It trains you to do certain jobs, and it will give you the chance to not do a bachelor's degree. While in the other profession, like IR, for example, international relations, and I mean, I'm an IR student as well, was an IR student. It's a very broad field, and it's politics. Like it's a degree which doesn't train you to do a specific kind of job. So usually in these kind of degrees, and that goes for sociology, cultural studies, whatever it is, a master's degree makes sense. And the master's degree shouldn't be, and that's something this is opinion, okay? A master's degree shouldn't be an IR. So don't look at a master's of international relations, because it doesn't, I'd look at it and I don't know what it is as an employer. Like, what is IR? It's economics, it's politics, whatever. So it's a very broad field, and it makes sense to go to a master's degree which is more specific. And it would then also bring you to a degree which allows you, the master's degree will also allow you to go into all these kind of jobs you might look for in international organizations or governmental institutions. Of course, this depends again on countries, so I can't be too specific here and take into consideration all of you individually, but this is generally how it goes in the world. DBI, I looked at it, and I think there are many concentrations, so there are some specifications, but just hearing the title, to be honest, Digital Innovation and Business, I think, Digital Business and Innovation, sorry, that's how it was. I'm not quite sure what it is. Is it computer science? Is it machine learning? Is it artificial intelligence? These degrees are it seems to be, even though you have your concentration, there are more specific degrees out there. So there's like computer science, or there's a master's degree in data or programming or whatever, and you will learn probably all of these things in your bachelor's degree. But I have the tendency to say, and this is again opinionated, and this is from what I saw, you might have a different view on this, so that's okay. I think it's very broad, and I think there might be some kind of way of, well, if you do the concentrations, I guess you can specify that in your degree, in your graduation. But thinking about doing a master's degree, perhaps potentially then really in computer science, that people actually know what it is. Which is really important, because you need to understand that some employer doesn't know what international relations is and doesn't know what DBI is. They look at it and like, okay, so what did you learn there exactly? What is digital business? Is it like marketing? Is it, it's the same with IR. Is it politics, or is it economics, or do you talk about sociology? All these kind of things will be, there's some room for interpretation. That's what I want to show you. And it will make it difficult for an employer to say, this is what you did. While in computer science, everyone knows what you did, probably. So these are the factors: money, experience, the factor of what vision you have. Do you want to learn a language? Do you want to stay in a specific country? Whatever it is. And the factor of your degree will definitely help you to find your own way or decision. So what to do next? That's something I would like to share with you. The first is make a list. What always helps me when I do a decision which I'm not sure I can make right now, I make a list. I look at, and I did this before as well. Why do I want to do a master's? I make a list of why I want to do a master, why I do not want to do a master, and I do the same thing for job. And it will give you kind of new perspectives. It might take a few days to actually make this list, or you take some time, and go to a cafe, have a nice cup of coffee, relax, no pressure at all. You just write down whatever comes to your mind, really just brainstorming on what comes to your mind. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's the smallest thing, you put it on the list, and it will definitely show you where to go. And you then, and that is some technique you can do, you will see that some points of them are more important than other points. You can kind of then allocate points, allocate numbers on like a scale to these bullet points and say, this is more important than the other. So, and then you can kind of compare it mathematically. Ask yourself questions always help. What I do, and you might laugh about that if you want to, that's okay. I like to talk to myself sometimes, particularly if I have to take a decision. I don't do that in public, I do that at home. But I also ask myself questions out loud, because saying them out loud, and instead of just keeping them in your head, sometimes helps you to hear them and realize that, okay, so like I ask myself, why do I want to do a master's degree? And the first thing which comes to my mind or what I feel, I say it out loud as well. And then I question this answer as well, like, why did I say this? And so on and so on. Whatever helps you, ask yourself questions. It can be on paper. You can talk to yourself, whatever you are more comfortable with. Set a goal, have a vision. That's again going back to the factor. If you really think you want to stay in Japan, then take that into consideration. See what the job market or how the market itself, how Japan works. Does it make sense to do a master's degree? Does it not make sense to do a master's degree? Whatever works for you. Check what is out there is another thing. Check what is out there is kind of, if you don't know what job to do or what masters to do, why don't you take a look at what is out there and what kind of jobs are there in your field? So you can simply Google that. So for business economics, you just Google what kind of jobs can I do with a business economics degree, and then you can have a list and you can read through these jobs and you see what might be interesting to you, because some description tells you, oh yeah, that's cool. Master's degree the same. You can go to university. You can say, okay, they have this degree in politics. Oh, this sounds cool. Or this is public policy, or this is international politics, or this is comparative politics. Really cool. DBI, the same thing. Oh, I really want to do coding. There's a really cool degree in code. Coding probably doesn't exist, but well, maybe there is. But there's some specific degrees. You can read the description and you can have kind of an idea of what is out there. Network is another really important thing, and that's kind of something we do right now. Talk to the people around you, your students, professors. If you have someone in your family who does a specific job you might be interested in, ask these people questions and try to figure out what they're doing every day. Because that might help you. It will give you definitely some guidance to choose what to do. Mentor up is another thing. If you have the chance, and some professors are that way, I was lucky enough, and I'm currently having a mentor myself. Mentors help extremely because they have been through these kind of choices, and they have been through this decision-making process, and they know what you're going through. So they should be people who understand you right now, and who don't tell you, oh, you should do this, you should do that. They should really question to bring you to kind of think and tell you that it's going to be, well, I don't want to say that it's going to be all right. I think that's a bit pathetic, but someone who will guide you, basically. And the last thing, and this is the most important thing, I believe, is gain experience. And that can be through internships, volunteering, any kind of part-time job. And what you can do then is see what you like. On a daily basis, when you have a task at the internship or volunteering you really hate, and you know that you don't want to do this kind of task in the future, then that might help you. For me, it's social media. I really don't like social media too much, except maybe LinkedIn. Okay, fair. it might, then I will say I will never do a pure communications job. I know that it's nothing I want to do, because there's so much social media involved. That's just one thing. Marketing, the same thing. I do not want to do marketing because I don't like doing it. I've done it before in my internships, because in an internship you do all kinds of things usually, so it might help you. Well, but whatever you choose, and this is now bringing it to my last slides, whatever you choose, it's not either I do a master's or I don't, or either I do a job or I don't. And a job will probably be something all of us will do in the future. A master's degree might not be something all of us do in the future, but it doesn't matter too much. If you decide to go after TAU into a job and start working, you will have the chance to do a master's degree in the future, after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years. Their master's degrees are open to working professionals. If you have some work experience, you will have a better chance to get into your university you want to get into. But it will also give you the idea of, actually, if you want to do pursue a master's degree in that field. And there are also executive masters. Executive masters are for the people who have had some work experience, let it be 5 to 10 years. So they're really tailored to your working life. And you can also do them simultaneously. I know that there was a question of, can I do these two things simultaneously? And there are ways of doing it. Let it be online, let it be an executive master's degree in the future. That's usually just open if you have a couple of years of work experience already. But there are ways of doing things at the same time. Let it be through evening schooling even. Another thing I would like to tell you is this uncertainty part. All of us go through it. My future isn't determined. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in a few months or in a year. And it will continue being like that after a bachelor's degree. After the master's degree, or after a few years of your job, you might say, actually, I don't like what I'm doing. What should I do next? And you kind of stand there in your life and you're like, oh, dang it, I'm not sure what to do. And so there will always be kind of some uncertainties out there. But I want you to see these kind of things as possibilities. These are not these kind of doors I showed you at the beginning of going wrong or going right. And you will have in life, and I think I can say that for certain, you will always have to go sometimes for alternatives, compromises, or you might feel, oh, I should have done this instead of that. But it is stupid. Let me just tell you straight ahead that I find this stupid. You will go through it. That is okay. And feeling uncertain, feelings like you regret something or you feel like you haven't done the right thing is natural. It's okay to feel that way, but don't get yourself hung up on that, because your life is it's not a straightforward line. There's so many different ways, and these are all different possibilities. You wouldn't have known that you should have done something. You wouldn't know if you should have done something without having gained these other experience. So, for example, if you go for a master's degree and you say, oh no, that wasn't really good what I did, I should have gone with a job. Well, the master's degree showed you that you should have done a job instead, right? Or I shouldn't have studied this. Well, if you haven't studied it during this time, how would you have known that you shouldn't have done it? Do you see what I mean? See these things as opportunities, possibilities. It's not an end-way street, and there's always a way forward. And if you think that you're right now in a position what you don't like, see it as something you've learned through the past few years, and that you kind of feel now determined to do something else. So there's a possibility. I don't think we live in a society anymore where it's not possible to change jobs. I think everywhere in the world, even in Japan, even though in Japan is still uncommon in other countries as well, it's opening up to more job opportunities. And you are all international students speaking fluently English. You have the chance to work anywhere in the world. There's so many possibilities out there. And the last thing I would like to kind of bring to this is this quote I found yesterday: do not go where the path may lead, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Goes back to the uncertainty. There are no exact path ahead. Again, it's just what you left behind and what you looked at. When you look back, what kind of trail do you have behind you? What has shown you that you want to do a master's degree, or what has shown you to do a specific job, and how can you learn from that experience? And so I found this quote, I don't know by whom it is, I just found it very suitable for this presentation. And the last thing I would like to tell you is as well, feel free to contact me. You might feel intimidated, shy, whatever it is. I give you the option of contacting me via LinkedIn or via email. And I'm telling you, I'm doing this for free. There's no money involved. I like helping out. I like to be some kind of help, some guidance. I enjoy these kind of things. And if you feel like you want to get in touch with me, you have some questions, feel free to reach out to me. I try to answer your questions. I try to have a chat with you. I'm really open to that. So feel free to contact me. Do not, and that's only one thing I tell you, please don't contact me via any other social media than LinkedIn. I'm not going to add you as a friend on Facebook if I don't know you, or on Instagram, whatever. I'm that kind of person. I'm very private in that regard. On LinkedIn, on the other hand, I'm all out. So feel free to contact me there or via this email address. And if we build some kind of connection, then there might be other ways. I will also give you potentially my private email account or my professional private working account, whatever it is. So I would give now the floor to you. Some way of Q&A, and I'm just going to pause the video here for a second. Not the video, the recording. That always takes a sec.